Hello and welcome to Board of It. I'm Farrell. This is Tally.
Hello.
And today we have a review of Spectral by Ryan Courtney for you. And this is a game that is probably going to be the most divisive Board of It review in all of our years of reviewing board games. I can't remember ever having such a difference of opinion. And it's even weirder because we both really like every other game of Ryan Courtney that we've played.
Yeah, spoiler.
But why don't you tell them what Spectral is?
Spectral is a competitive deduction game in which you'll be taking on the role of a team of treasure hunters searching through a spooky mansion, and you need to avoid curses in order to seek out that treasure. Before we get into the review, it's important to note that we were sent this as a review copy by the publisher Bitewing Games.
In Spectral, as we said in the intro, you're doing competitive deductions. So on your turn, it's very simple. You either place some treasure hunters down or you pass. You can place as many treasure hunters as you want, but generally you'll only want to put one if the space is empty. When you put one down at the intersection of two cards, you're allowed to then peek at one of the cards and you kind of fill out what it shows you on your chart here in this booklet. And these cards are going to give you indications of where curses or treasures can be found. Because the cards don't show you what's on that space, they show you what's on another space. And there's 4 different types of cards. One will show you where something is on a double diagonal, because the way this grid works is that there's only one other card in the grid where you can move twice in a diagonal manner and still be within the grid. There's also a reflection, so the card will show you where treasure or curse is reflected, so along this midline here. So if this showed you treasure, the treasure would actually be here, and if it was a reflection. Then there's also, as you can see here, it's split into quadrants. There's also a quadrant diagonal where it looks within the quadrant it's in, and it tells you that the treasure's on a diagonal, and there's basically only going to be one diagonal that it can be in within the quadrant, so that's where the treasure or the curse is. The final one's a bit trickier. It basically divides this grid of cards into an outer loop and an inner circle, and it's saying that the treasure or the curse is 2 cards clockwise in whichever circle that card is in. So if the card's here, the cursed treasure will end up being here. If the card is here, the cursed treasure will end up being here. So that's a little bit highbrow, complicated, but essentially you're going to go to spaces. The cards are going to tell you where treasure or curses are. You're going to write it down, and you're trying to, as quickly as possible, figure out where a lot of treasure is, but also where the curses are. Because if you end the game next to a curse, your players are wiped out, so you get nothing. If you end next to just treasure, you get the treasure. And if multiple players are next to treasure, they divide it equally. And what you eventually want to do is have a good idea of where some good treasure spots are that are free from curses. And then you're going to start loading up on players, because as I said, you can put as many treasure hunters down as you want, but to knock your player out of that space and back to you, the other player or yourself has to put down at least twice as much. So once someone has kind of put a 4 down somewhere, it's very difficult to knock them out with the limited numbers you have. And at the end of the game, the player who has the most treasure will win. All in all, Spectral was something quite unlike anything I've played before. It's quite novel in the fact that you have this logic puzzle deduction game where you're looking at stuff and working out where things are, but you also have a competitive element where eventually you're going to have to make a decision on where you want to stand. You want to probably end up knocking other people away from spaces you want to go, so you get more treasure. And then you just have this little competitive element. It's something quite unique and very unsurprising, actually, that it came from Ryan Courtney. There's a lot I personally really like about the game. I really enjoy the deduction puzzle. I like sitting there and kind of quietly working out where things are, doodling on your little booklet, figuring out what you can from information you've gathered. And this is a game that definitely is rewarded by having repeat plays, because you start to figure out the patterns and how things interlink, and you can really end up surprising yourselves by the amount of information you can deduce by not having gone to very many spaces. However, you also have to find people who want to play it the whole time, and it's been very hit or miss when we've introduced it to people, obviously even between me and Tally. But there's just something about it that I think is really great for a kind of quiet, cozy deduction game, although on the other hand, people who like interaction, there's really not so much, even though you're trying to knock other people out. But you can also have some interesting moments of trying to read other players if you're playing a kind of higher player count game. Because at 2 players, it's more straight deduction. If you're playing 4 or 5, there's a lot of, ooh, why are they going there? It's the mid to late game. Does that mean something? Should I go there? And you can kind of have these almost gambling deduction reading the person experiences where you're almost betting on how well you're reading the person rather than what you know, or you're using the limited information in combination with what someone else is doing. And it just creates some really novel and interesting situations to work out.
So what I will say for this game is it is very novel, and we haven't really played anything like this before. I do think the whole writing your notes down, using the pencil, having a little secret book is a very fun and cool experience. However, for me, I'm less of a fan of the game than Farrell, because I do find the randomness of where you first place your treasure hunters just a little bit frustrating. Obviously, you're trying to deduce where the curses and the treasure is, but there's absolutely no way of knowing where it is from the beginning. So those first placements and those first cards that you look at, they could be anything, and you have absolutely no way of even guessing what they are. And the thing is, you can't take any action and you can't do anything about that if you do discover later down the line that there is a curse there or there's no treasure there, for example. So I think the lack of being able to do anything about those first placements kind of renders much of the game a little bit pointless for me personally. I do think it's also a game that is a bit difficult to teach and explain because there is hidden information. So throughout the game, of course, if people have questions, then you can't really help them without revealing information. So it is a little bit difficult in that first game, and I think you just have to play it in order to be able to understand really what you're trying to do and then reveal at the end. But that said, it is a very quick game to play. I think most of our games have lasted, 15 to 25 minutes. So the fact that it is kind of random in the beginning and difficult to teach, maybe in the first game, it's not the end of the world. I'm still happy to have a game of it. It is quite fun to try and figure out where those things are. But yeah, it's just not going to be a favorite of mine because it is just too frustrating to me that you can't do anything about the hidden information that you eventually find out.
Spectral is a particularly hard one for us to come to a conclusion on because we both feel very differently. I think it's going to be a very much love or hate game. I do get your points that there's inherent randomness where you put people down originally, but it doesn't really bother me because you kind of have to throw them out there to discover where to go. But there is also an argument that one of the tiebreakers is who has kind of lost the most people to curses. And if it's due to starting turn randomness, then that can be a little bit
Quite
annoying. But I mean, that hasn't really happened, I would say.
Yeah, that's true.
But there's a potential for it. I think it's great for people. If you like what I said in, you could say, my segment, where I'm talking about the coziness of the deduction, the fun and joy and kind of just comforting satisfaction of doodling and figuring out and deducting.
Like doodling, to be fair.
I really enjoy that element of it. But why don't you tell them why they wouldn't like it?
If you find it frustrating that there is that randomness in the beginning, I don't even find that, too bad. It's just that you can't do anything about it. I would like some kind of mechanism where once you do uncover some information, then you could actually take an action on it. That might make me feel better about it. But if that sort of thing would bother you, as it does me, then this is not going to be the game for you. What I would say is it is quite a nice one to play with family or like non-board gamer friends, because it's...
Don't know about that. They went down pretty badly when we tried it.
Well, I think it's just something novel, right? And if people align with your tastes, it's a nice small box. It's very transportable. We took it on holiday with us. So those are some kind of good quality points about it. And I don't think it's a sort of game, like I don't hate it. I'm happy to play it.
You've never said that to me.
Reactions sometimes when we're playing it. But yeah, if you have some people in your life that maybe more align with Farrell's opinions, then I don't think it's something that you're going to absolutely hate. But yeah, for me, if you align with me, then I wouldn't get it.
Yes, so obviously a clear conclusion for that one. But I think it's certainly something unique, and it's something definitely, if you can try it somewhere without buying it, I definitely think it's worth doing that. There's a lot to like about it, and in fact something we haven't mentioned so far is that there's additional cards you can put in to make the puzzle more complex, basically. So there's the easiest way to say it would be almost like 3 mini expansions, because these types of cards do certain things, like actually they cancel where that card puts the treasure. So actually it stays on that card, or the curse stays on that card. And it makes the puzzle more complex and intriguing. So that's something that's quite interesting as well in terms of replayability. And you also shuffle these up, so it's a new puzzle every time. But yeah, I mean, you just have to pick who you align with more, I guess.
Exactly, yeah.
So, but very interesting, and something that I would like to play more. I just need to find someone who isn't Tally to play it with.
I'll play it.
I think I'm scared to. You get angry. So that was our review of Spectral. If it was helpful and you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. It would really help us. If you have any questions about it, please ask us down below. And most importantly, just thanks for watching. We really appreciate it, and see you next time.